this question.
Okay.
So we can do that with the Earth. We can solve this what is question by just measuring it directly without appealing to theories and hypotheses and just say, hey, let's take a tape measure and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
People have
So we've done that. That's what I don't think you get. We've done that.
Measured it, and like people don't do.
We've measured significant portions over large bodies of water, and there's no measured curve. Multiple times in multiple countries by multiple people using multiple methods.
Okay. Well, I think that there's no measured. Well,
no, there's measured curvature. I guess it's just like depends upon the way they interpret the data that they get.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how they do it.
There's definitely curvature. No, they've measured curvature for sure.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Measured curvature.
Oh, here we go. I knew I was going to wake your ass up.
From the globe. So we could just say that it's a belief that you have from the measurement, right? That you trust whatever source gave it to you, that you're saying, okay, well, it's legit, right?
No, I could go out right now and test it if I wanted to, but
right but now, you haven't, right? But you haven't, so it's still a belief at this point, right now.
Well, sure, but I mean, I'm listening to like the biggest scientists in the planet. They're not just lying to you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gathering what you know. So point number one, the Earth's curvature being measured would be just a belief in your mind for right now. So we'll move off to point number two, which is axial rotation, either being measured or tested to be true. Is there any way that you know that axial rotation is a reality that can be measured, like that you know that the Earth is spinning?
Well, we know the Earth is spinning because it spins at 15 degrees per hour. We already know that because of Bob.
Oh God, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, hang on, Bob. Hang on, Bob. I know you're in the chat. Just hang on. Let me get through here with this guy.
So he said he's not new.
Okay.
Well, I'm in high school, so I should know this now.
You name dropped somebody you didn't know was in here, but Mickey's gonna finish the conversation with you real quick. Please just be honest and concise.
Well, I didn't know this was filled with like the biggest flat earthers, but whatever.
Let Mickey do it.
Just let me. Okay, so you said that because Bob presented some information, and you didn't get this from any source like a textbook or a teacher told you. This was strictly from a Netflix video that you saw. Is that correct?
From multiple sources, yeah.
Okay, so what would be the primary source of your knowledge from the axial rotation of the Earth spinning, Spooky?
Well, from the textbook, first of all. I already knew that from class.
So you read some. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was laughing at the physics class. My bad.
So a teacher told you this, or a physics class that you took, some information that you gathered that the Earth is spinning on its axis is how you obtained the understanding that it is spinning on its axis, right?
Well, I'm just saying, like, your model, it doesn't really work out with day and night.
Model?
Sure.
See, the sun...
Yeah, one second, guys.
See, the sound...
One second.
The sun
Go ahead,
is...
Spooky.
the sun is round, and in your model, it only shows half the Earth illuminated, which doesn't make sense because the sun is a ball, and...
All right, cool. I understand. But we're sticking to like what you know and information. Just give to me what you know from how you got the understanding that the Earth is spinning on its axis. That's all I care about. I don't really care about anything else but what you know, the information that you can give me, how you know the Earth is spinning on its axis. And from what I gathered, it's from some physics class that you took, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so not any direct measurement that you have done, but somebody somewhere on that you got told from your physics class gave you the information that you know that the Earth is spinning on its axis. So what I'm alluding to here is that it's a belief that was given to you that you haven't verified thus far. So right now, the understanding that the Earth is spinning on its axis was given to you from a teacher, through a textbook, however you got it.
Yeah, but those were done through experiments from other people. They're not.
Sure, right. So what you're doing here is you're taking information, on face value that they've done their due diligence and they gave you that information via some kind of experiment or something. So right now you're trusting these sources, correct?
But why wouldn't I trust these sources?
No,
I'm not.
Scientists. Yeah, I'm not. Hey, I'm not disputing that. So the information that you're gathering right now to you, as far as you're concerned, is just a belief because you trust them. It's a whatever you want to call it, justified belief or whatever. But the root of it would still be considered a belief because you trust whatever.
No, it's a known fact.
No, I'm talking about the information that you've gathered is a belief.
The information that I gathered is a known fact.
Okay, sure, whatever, but it's still a belief because you haven't measured it. You haven't verified it yourself.
That's what I'm verified. Other 10 other people besides being verified.
Right. Yeah, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not debating with you on this point. I'm trying to establish is either it's verified by you or it's a belief that you have. So right now it's just a belief because somebody else did it. So that's all I'm getting to right now. Just the information that you know, Spooky. I'm not debating with you. I'm just
stop trying to debate him. He's not trying to debate you, man.
Yeah. I'm just getting the understanding that from what you know, it's just all belief right now. It hasn't been something you verified. That's all I'm just getting to right now.
Yeah, I guess so because I don't have 15,000.
All right, cool. Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. You don't need a reason. It's all good.
All right. So point number 2.
Let Mickey do it, will you?
Point number 2 is that axial rotation is just a belief you have because via whatever information you gathered that you think it's spinning on its axis. So point number 3 is that the vacuum of space is a medium that we could travel to, or that it actually exists. Now, is there any information that you could give me? Remember, no right or wrong answer, just what you know as to how far you can verify that when you look up at your night sky, that it's actually a vacuum that you're staring at when you look up.
Well, we could see that because we're not talking about a vacuum cleaner here. We're talking about vacuum means emptiness in our case. So there's nothing there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a physical place we could travel to, yes. Because there's nothing, no air, no oxygen molecules, no nitrogen molecules, nothing like that.
So. None at all.
All right. So everything
maybe 1 or 2, per 1,000 kilometers, maybe.
Sure.
Around.
So all this information is verified by you. You said, you verified it to be true that when you stare up in your night sky, that's indeed a vacuum. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, because I have a telescope, one of those 10-inch wide telescopes, and I've watched the International Space Station fly past the moon. I'm just saying.
So you're fake, right? So you're seeing things from the ground, and you're believing that the sky is a vacuum. Look, what I'm saying is, have you verified that it actually is yourself?
Well, I haven't been to space, so no. I can't.
Okay. So no would be
you can't either.
Right. Well, I'm not disputing. This is the thing, Spooky. I'm not debating you. I'm just gathering the information honestly from your point of view as to what you know. So yeah, you conceded. You said I don't know. So right now, the vacuum of space being a reality to you is just a belief. So it could be that you're trusting sources or astronauts or whoever it is, but it's just a belief that you have that the vacuum of space is a reality and it's a medium that people can travel to. So I'm going to go ahead and round off the 3 points that I propose to you right now, that the curvature of Earth being measured either in ancient times or now is just a belief. Axial rotation, that you trust in sources.
But now you're twisting my words. Now I didn't.
No, I'm not twisting.
Hey, he's talking, man.
Let me finish real quick, Spooky. So this isn't, like I said, this isn't a debate. It's just gathering information from what you told me. So that's all I'm doing, repeating it back to you. And I'm kind of making it to where you can see all 3 points together. So the axial rotation point you told me is also something you learned from a physics class, and you trust those sources, so it's a belief. And the vacuum of space being a medium that we could travel to, or that it actually exists, is still just a belief. So the paradigm of the globe Earth as presented to you throughout your whole life has been a belief that you held strongly to, but it doesn't have any basis on known reality. As in, it hasn't been measured, you haven't detected it, and you haven't been there. So there's nothing that you could actually say right now that would justify a belief that you have in your mind.
Well,
so when you would move forward in the conversation, because we're going to open it up so you can ask any questions you'd like about flat Earth. But if when we open up the conversation and you revert back to trying to justify it, we're gonna let it known that what you're trying to do is assert your belief once again when it's already been known that you just believe it to be true. You follow me, Spooky? So it's not something that you can test and verify because you haven't done it yet. So you're just asserting a belief. So when we get into a conversation, which I'd like you to have with us, don't revert back to like, well, what about pictures from space or something? Because all these things are just rooted in your mind as just beliefs. So,
well, I have a couple. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I'm just going to open up the conversation now, but just to let it be known to everybody here that you did concede and said it was just a belief. But so if you cannot, try not to go back and try to justify these things as if they're actual known reality, because just right now you conceded to yourself that it's just a belief that you carry. That would be it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and you can ask any questions to people here who would take any questions for Flat Earth. And if you want to know,
you mentioned Bob, why don't you start with Bob?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have one question only.
I didn't
fast question.
Bob here.
I only have one question fast about Bob.
Yeah, I think he's right. We should let Bob cover that attack on him if he wants to.
I'd be more than happy to cover it.
Without interruption, please.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. This is going to be awesome.
Okay, so obviously you don't know me, right? You only know me because of what you saw in Behind the Curve, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and from what I said in Behind the Curve, you took that and interpreted as, what I was saying is that the Earth was spinning, right?
Yeah, you said 15 per 1 hour and 15-degree drift.
That is correct. That's exactly what I said. And you know what? I wasn't lying. That's exactly what we registered. The problem is what the producer interpreted that and actually cut the editing to make it look like. So would it surprise you if I told you that, I completely agree with everything you just said. I absolutely did say that. But unfortunately, because of the way the producer twisted that around, I was not saying 15 degrees per hour of Earth rotation. Now, do you want to know how I know that?
Because your gyroscope, your like $40,000. What was how much was it?
Well, first of all, it wasn't my gyroscope, and second of all, I didn't do the initial test, but I got credited with that, so I'm just gonna wear it. Okay. But we took that gyroscope, and like I said, when we first plugged it in, we got a 15 degree per hour rotation. And actually, it wasn't specifically 15 degrees per hour. It would be an interpolated value, taking the sine of the latitude times 15 degrees per hour, which would kind of equate out to that. Okay, so let's make that perfectly clear for one thing. But secondly, when I was in the movie, at that time when I stated that, I had no idea. I was just as surprised as anybody else, and I was very reluctant to accept it because I was trying to interpret, exactly what we were seeing. And I came to find out later on, and by the way, I did tell the movie producer this, exactly what we were seeing had actually been measured and discovered over 100 years before in what was called the Michelson-Gale experiment, right? The rotation of the luminiferous ether. So at that point, then what we were faced with is we had the challenge of, well, how do we prove that it is not Earth rotation and was in fact the luminiferous ether? Now, some people, and I'll even say even in this panel, don't believe necessarily that the luminiferous ether exists, but there's also a lot of Nobel laureate, physicists that say that it does, and it's, there's a big debate on it. Let's just put it that way. But by using that very same gyroscope, whether you believe in the ether or not, we actually devised a way to tell us whether or not it was in fact Earth rotating, okay? And it was really pretty simple, right? So first of all, do you understand at all how the fiber optic gyro works, how laser interferometry works?
Well, not really, but I get the gist of it. I get how a gyroscope works and how the gravitational pull works on it. And then when there are spins, there's different. It marks one spot, and then it calculates the time interval it takes. Then it calculates the angle, how much is the angle is changed.
Well, that would be for a gyroscope, yes, but a fiber optic gyro works a little bit differently. It works on something that's called the Sagnac effect. And the Sagnac effect is basically, it goes under the assumption that if light is traveling through a medium, right? In other words, they speak of light as a wave, right? So you have to ask yourself, well, what is a wave? What is it waving, right? What is it traveling through to cause that wave? What is the medium that light is actually waving, right? Well, scientists have been saying for centuries that it is in fact this luminiferous ether. And that is what I actually wound up claiming that it was that was actually rotating, the luminiferous ether. Now, here's how and why I came to that conclusion. So we went back and we looked at these experiments from over 100 years ago and the assertions about the Sagnac effect and laser interferometry. And it turns out that what they say about the luminiferous ether is that it rotates very much, or it behaves very much like a magnetic toroidal field. Are you familiar with a toroidal field in a magnet?
Yes.
Okay, so the ether very much behaves in the same way. It actually is moving. It's not a stationary thing. It is moving, and believe it or not, it propagates vortexually, right? And it just so happens that that vortex rate is about 15 degrees per hour. Now, again, how is it that we were able to figure that out and that it was not Earth rotation? And the answer is really quite simple. So if I'm taking, and this is, by the way, exactly what we did. So we took the fiber optic gyro and we went to a place in Colorado called Pikes Peak. And Pikes Peak is at 14,125 feet above sea level, okay? And we did our measurements there and we got essentially our equivalent to the 15 degrees per hour rotation rate from Pikes Peak. Now again, whatever you want to call it, you can call it the ether or you can call it Earth rotation, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But what we're trying to prove here is that it was not Earth rotation that we were picking up. So we did that measurement at Pikes Peak and we got a value for it, okay? And then we went down to eastern Colorado following the exact same line of latitude. Right? And why we followed the exact same line of latitude, I'm going to tell you here in just a second. But we went directly east in Colorado on the exact same line of latitude down to just over 4,000 feet. And then we did another measurement. Okay? So would you agree that if I am measuring something that rotates, or that measures spin, right, or a rotational rate, that it should not matter whether I take that rotation rate at the bottom of a device or at the top of a device, especially a spinning ball. It would be the same whether you took it right on the globe or an inch above the globe. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, and you would be absolutely correct. It would not vary at all because it doesn't matter where you would be, high or low, on that same latitude line. It is going to rotate at precisely the same speed. Well, here's the problem with that. What we found was that when we did the measurement with the fiber optic gyro at the 4,000 foot elevation, we had about a 1.3, 1.4 degree per hour variance from that done at the 14,125 foot elevation on Pikes Peak. Okay, so we thought, well, that's pretty interesting because that actually equates to be 26, 27 degrees per day, right? That's a huge number. So we did it again at a different place, Guanella Pass, and again, and again, and again. And we did it in several different places in Colorado. And again, each time we then went to its corresponding latitude line at a lower altitude. And every single time we got a greater than 1 degree variance on the two measurements. Well, why would that be? Well, if you think back to what I just said about how the luminiferous ether was always said to propagate, and this comes from the people that coined the term, Newton, Maxwell, Clerk Maxwell, all these people that talked about this originally, then all you have to do basically is visualize it as a vortex, i.e. like a tornado, okay? So if you are looking at a tornado and you look at it on a z-axis, right, then at the top of the tornado, right, it's rotating fairly slowly, and as you go down that z-axis down towards the ground, it rotates faster and faster and faster, right? So you have a considerably faster rotation rate at the ground that you do, from high up in the air. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Did I lose it? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
no.
All right. So that, again, is exactly what we are saying that the luminiferous behavior is propagating as, right? A vortex. So the problem here for the globe is that when you get a 1.3, 1.4 degree per hour, which equates to 27, 28 degrees per day, something like that, difference in rotation, then that pretty much tells you unequivocally that what we are picking up is not Earth rotation. And it is more commensurate with that vortexual behavior that science has always told us that the luminiferous ether actually behaves in this vortex, right? So we did this multiple times, and every single time, we weren't expecting such a huge variance. But, when you're talking 1.3, 1.4 degrees per hour, that's actually huge for 10,000 feet. So we can only imagine that number grows even greater if we were able to go higher and lower. But the most important thing is what it proved unequivocally is that what we were picking up was not Earth rotation. And do you see the logic behind that as to why we know that it wasn't Earth rotation?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. So whether or not, anybody wants to accept that it was in fact the luminiferous ether, as I claim, and as other people claim, that's up to you. But the primary goal here is to prove that what it did pick up was not Earth rotation. And in fact, when they did this over 100 years ago in the Michelson-Gale experiment, they had to do another experiment called Airy's failure to try and determine what exactly it was that was spinning. Was it the Earth or was it the sky? And so what they did was they devised a very simple optical experiment called Airy's failure, in which they measured the rotation rate optically with the telescope, and then they filled it full of water. And, theoretically, that would slow down the propagation of light through the telescope. And then the idea is that if they had to tilt the telescope further forward, then the light would not be coming in at the correct angle. However, if they didn't have to tilt the telescope forward, then the light was already coming in at the correct angle of 15 degrees per hour, indicating that it is in fact the stars that are rotating and not the Earth. Well, guess what? Airy's failure. Same conclusion. It concluded that it was in fact the stars. So now not only do we have the FE Core's version of testing whether or not it was Earth rotation, but we also have Airy's failure from back in antiquity. And to this day, you still have people saying, well, we built these gigantic laser interferometers that are stationary and sitting in one place, and of course they are going to be picking up a rotation just like we did. But the problem is there's no way to falsify that if you cannot move that detector up and down on a z-axis to see if whatever it is that you're measuring is changing velocities at different altitudes or different z-axis. Okay? So that is how we know unequivocally that what we were not measuring was Earth rotation. And of course, because the producers of Behind the Curve did not want that information to come out, they skewed it and made it look like, wow, dummy flat earthers, they proved it, with their own equipment, and then sit there and keep denying it. Well, they didn't include the rest of the story, and that's kind of the problem that we have with Behind the Curve. And that's all I have on that, unless you have any questions.
No, I'm just wondering why. I mean, it's just weird why they wouldn't include it.
I'm sorry, it's weird why they wouldn't what?
Include it, because lots of people, I don't think you've told this to many people.
I have told this countless times. It doesn't get any press. And I told it to them, and I'll tell you why. And the producer even said it himself. They were all for giving Behind the Curve a fair representation until they went to the 2017 Flat Earth International Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, then at some point, I don't know, either primary or junior high school kid got up, expressed his beliefs in flat Earth, and he said, Clark, whatever his name was, Mr. Clark, that did the documentary production, said that he and Caroline decided at that point in time that this was too serious and they had to stop it. And they decided at that point in time that they then had to change around the theme of the movie to make it more of an anti-flat Earth propagation piece. Now, they said this in their own words. Daniel Clark, by the way, is his name. He said it in his own words, and he said the same thing to us. It's like, okay, now this isn't funny anymore. You've got kids taking this in, thinking that it's serious, and so now we're going to turn this around on you, and that's why they didn't include it. That's exactly what they told me, and that's what they are actually in public saying. Okay? So, in other words, this flat Earth idea, this paradigm is so powerful that it will change lives. It will change everything about this world, really, that you ever thought you knew about it. And it exposes a lot of things, to a lot of people that they simply are not ready to handle yet. And so that is why they decided not to do that. And that's exactly what they told us.
All right, Spooky Elon, did you have any questions for Flat Earth that we might want to engage any discussion on? Or
that was awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, guys, thanks for letting him talk uninterrupted.
We get that all the time. You see how crazy that is, bro? Like you said, your instinctual response was, why would they do that? He explained their little story for it, but isn't it interesting that you came in here having a complete misrepresentation of what the actual stance was? Because if what they told you about it was true, which is that it's archaic, unfounded, and just preposterous, stupid, then they would never have to do that, right? And you've now got the context of just one of the misrepresentations, which was a Netflix film. Firsthand, you couldn't have got a better explanation, but this will be a reoccurring theme. This is because there is no debate against Flat Earth. Flat Earth is objective.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to ask Spooky Elon is if what Bob said is 100% true, and I completely obviously believe him, why did they have the opposite reaction that they should have had? So if this is true and it's serious, why would that force them to make it anti-Flat Earth? Surely, as a well-meaning producer, when you discover that something actually isn't a joke, you should want to push it out more.
Well, I think a lot of that goes back to, people's cognitive dissonance. I mean, let's face it, Flat Earth is an explosive subject. It completely screws with people's realities, and they simply, I hate to coin the term, but, it kind of goes back to that movie where Jack Nicholson says, you can't handle the truth. Well, a lot of people can't handle the truth. I mean, because this, what Flat Earth actually represents is a change in paradigm that is so severe that it literally wrecks everything we've ever been taught for our entire life, And as Flat Earthers, we, it's much easier for us to understand things like, that these frauds are going on, like Sandy Hook being a fraud, like Boston bombing being a fraud, like 9/11 being a fraud. We see it over and over and over again, but this is a big one. When they're talking about, wow, we're not in outer space, we're not on a spinning ball, that there had to be somebody that actually created this place for us, which is a very logical and sound conclusion. It's just something that a lot of people can't handle. And by the way, there's a lot more evidence, to kind of support, not support, there's a lot of evidence, period. In fact, all the evidence pretty much supports the Flat Earth position. I always talk about what I call the preponderance of evidence. And, when you look at the preponderance of evidence being that, we cannot measure curvature anywhere, we cannot measure spin rate anywhere, we cannot measure these very slight changes in inertia between perigee and apogee. People will say, well, of course you can't feel that with your senses. And maybe you can and maybe you can't. But one thing that they neglect to say at that point is that we have instrumentation that is absolutely capable of measuring those very, very subtle changes, right? They're called accelerometers. You have one in your phone, and they are so sensitive. Well, look into them. They are incredibly sensitive. And so we have all the instrumentation. It's not just the fiber optic gyros that are giving us this information. We have several pieces of test equipment that are, giving us this information. And going on behind that, then when you look at NASA and all of the frauds that they do, all the CGI, the fake pictures of the globe, the fact that we didn't even get a picture of the globe until like Apollo 17, right? You'd have to ask yourself, why in the world would that be, right? Why would NASA, admit to making CGI composites and not even giving us pictures of the globe when, you know what, if you and I went out to outer space, the first thing we would do is snap about 1 billion pictures of every leg of the journey, I mean, everything that NASA is doing is completely non sequitur. It doesn't add up. And when you start looking at it through the paradigm of, well, maybe because we can't go into space, and that the Bible just may be accurate in that there is a firmament up there. And I am a person that believes, that there is a firmament up there. And I say that not because of any religious belief, because I'm not a religious person necessarily, but because of the evidence. When you look at things like sprites and elves and discharges, and everything seems to cap off at this 100-kilometer or 62-mile limit, and all kinds of strange things seem to happen around there, you really have to begin wondering. And then, of course, there's also the NASA and the Army documentation that talks about the firmament that, of course, the ball earthers will want to, completely set aside and dismiss. Great, so set that aside, dismiss that, whatever you want to do. But there is still a mountain of this preponderance of evidence to follow to prove our position in flat Earth. And we can take apart the globe argument at every turn. So this is why. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, gas pressure without a container. Well, obviously there is a container. It's called a firmament, and the evidence for that container is quite abundant, frankly, and I've done several shows on this. So, there you have it. And that's just my take. I'm going to let some other people talk about this, but, that's just, my take on why I've gotten into this.
Bob, can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know that somebody in human history made some similar or the same measurement you do on that movie, and if you understand, my English is not good.
What was that?